They called the B-26 Marauder a widowmaker. But on one violent morning in 1944, an American crew from Texas proved that sometimes the plane doesn't save the men save the plane. The Texas crew. In early 1944, the U.S. Army Air Forces were tightening their grip on German-occupied France. Among the countless American crews preparing for the invasion was the B-26 Marauder Lone Star Lady, flown by a young Texan captain named Jack McCallan. Jack was raised on the dry ranch lands outside San Antonio, where dust storms were common and fear was optional. His crew was just as American as it gets. Lieutenant Benny Crow, a New Yorker bombardier with an attitude as sharp as his aim. Tech Sergeant Walter Big Walt Mayfield, a 6'5" waist gunner from Oklahoma. Johnny Pierce, the radio man from Chicago who carried a harmonica everywhere. And Danny Shortstop Ruiz, the tail gunner, barely 19, from El Paso. They were young, loud, patriotic, and about to fly one of the most dangerous missions of their lives. The mission briefing, April 12, 1944. The target, a German coastal artillery position in Normandy. Those massive guns guarded the beaches that American troops would storm later that year. If the guns survived, thousands of U.S. soldiers would die. The B-26s were chosen because they could attack with surgical precision, but they had to fly low. And low meant they'd be within reach of machine guns, flak towers, and German fighters. The briefing officer didn't sugarcoat it. Expect heavy resistance, you'll be flying at 8,000 feet. That's their sweet spot. Jack looked at his crew. No one flinched. Benny cracked a grin. Well, boys, Texas or bust. The Lone Star Lady rolled toward the runway, engines rumbling with raw American power. The formation of Marauders skimmed low across the English Channel, the gray water looking like a sheet of torn metal beneath them. The crew sat tense but focused. Big Walt loaded belts of .50 caliber ammo into his guns. Danny in the tail turret scanned the skies. Johnny tapped his harmonica against his helmet, a habit he did every mission for luck. As they approached the French coastline, Jack called out, "Eyes sharp, boys, they'll be waiting." And they were. Before the Lone Star Lady even reached the target zone, the Germans opened up, a curtain of black flak erupting like thunder across the sky. The Marauder bucked violently as explosions tossed the aircraft like a toy in a storm. The bomb run had to be perfect. No turning, no dodging, no evasive maneuvers, straight through the kill zone. That's what made these missions pure suicide. Benny crouched over the bomb site, breathing hard, sweat streaking across his forehead despite the freezing cold. "Hold her steady, Jack, just a little more." The flak intensified. Explosions so close the shockwaves slapped the tail like a whip. Shrapnel rattled against the fuselage in metallic screams. A nearby Marauder took a direct hit and vanished in a fireball. Danny shouted, "Jesus, one down, one down." But Jack didn't look. He kept the Lone Star Lady level. And then Benny's voice cut through the chaos. "Bombs, no way!" The moment the bombs dropped, Jack yanked the aircraft into a turn to escape the flak zone. But before the maneuver completed, crack! A direct hit slammed into the right engine. Flames burst out like a blowtorch. The Marauder lurched downward in a sickening dive. Big Walt shouted, "We're losing her!" Jack fought the controls with every ounce of strength. Feather the prop. Kill the fuel line! But the fire wouldn't die. It spread across the wing, eating into the metal. The plane shook violently, warning that the wing might shear off entirely. Any logical pilot would bail out. But below them were German artillery positions and machine gun nests. They would be slaughtered parachuting down. Jack saw the coastline ahead. "No one jumps. Not over enemy territory. We take her home." For a moment, the crew was silent. Then Danny whispered, "Hell yeah, Captain, let's ride her." Their worst fear materialized: bandits. Two German FW-190 fighters swooped in like hawks, cannons blazing. Tracers tore past the tail. Danny opened up with his twin 50s, firing so hard his entire turret vibrated. "I'm on him! I'm on him!" One fighter broke off, but the second stayed glued to their tail, pumping rounds into the already burning wing. Pieces of metal flew off the Marauder. Johnny yelled, "Radio's out, I can't call for help." Big Walt fired from the waist blister, roaring like a madman. His rounds stitched across the sky, finally hitting the German fighter's wing root. The FW-190 began trailing smoke, dipping low. Danny finished him with a burst that split the engine apart. "One down, one..." A cannon shell exploded near the tail turret. Danny's voice cut off with a gasp. Jack shouted, "Tail, report! Danny, talk to me!" No answer. Big Walt climbed back through the fuselage, the plane trembling violently under him. Smoke, fuel fumes, and loose wires filled the tail section. He found Danny slumped over, blood staining his flight suit. "I got you, kid. Stay with me," Walt whispered as he pulled Danny from the turret. Danny's breathing was ragged, but he was alive. The fire in the right wing was still spreading. Jack was losing altitude fast. "Can we hold?" Benny asked. Jack gritted his teeth. "We're Americans, aren't we? We don't fold easy." With one engine gone, the Marauder was barely controllable, but still flying. Crossing the channel back to England felt like crossing a lifetime. Every mile was a battle. The burning engine suddenly coughed, sputtered, and exploded, pieces flying off into the sea. The crew flinched, but the wing, miraculously, held. Jack kept the plane at 300 feet altitude, skimming the water to avoid German radar. Benny checked on Danny, who whispered through pale lips, "We make it home. I want to hear that harmonica again." Johnny swallowed hard. "You got it, kid." As the white cliffs of England appeared in the distance, Jack felt tears sting his eyes. "Come on, hold together, girl. Just a little more." The Lone Star Lady approached the airfield, trailing smoke like a wounded eagle. Emergency crews raced to the runway. Jack lowered the landing gear. It shuddered, groaned, and locked halfway. "Come on, come on." Finally, it snapped into place. Jack brought the crippled bomber down hard. The left wheel hit first, skidding in sparks. The right wheel collapsed instantly. The plane collapsed onto its belly, scraping across the runway for nearly 500 yards before finally stopping. Silence. Then the hatch burst open. Big Walt carried Danny out in his arms, bloody but alive. The ground crew stared at the burning, shredded B-26 in disbelief. One officer muttered, "No damn way that aircraft should have stayed in the sky." Jack simply replied, "It didn't.
Easy, kid."
My crew did." Danny survived. Jack earned the Distinguished Flying Cross. Big Walt was recommended for the Silver Star. The Lone Star Lady was too damaged to ever fly again, but her last mission became legend in the 9th Air Force. American crews spoke of her with a kind of reverence. That is the Marauder that wouldn't quit. Jack McCallan returned to Texas after the war and lived a quiet life. But every year on April 12th, he pulled out an old oil-stained photo of his crew and remembered the day 5 Americans kept a dying plane alive by sheer will. That's the spirit that won the war. That's the spirit of the American airmen.